SWAMI VIVEKANANDA, the Dynamic Monk. SWAMI VIVEKANANDA was a veritable embodiment of divine energy. His complex personality is essentially that of an avatara of Shakti. Swamiji's dynamic personality had different kinds of impact on different minds, and even common people referred to him as the cyclonic monk, the Hindu Napoleon, and the warrior monk, and other names that expressed their admiration and awe. He was a living dynamo who impressed everyone with a particular aspect of his blazing personality. He radiated an aura of courage and fearlessness. These attributes, together with his spiritual magnitude, robust optimism, and above all, his powerful message, are the eternal sources of his living philosophy, described as a tonic of the soul. Guru Das Maharaj, a Dutch immigrant in the United States, who later became Swami Atulananda, recorded his first impression because it came to him with such great force. Quote, "When I saw him for a few minutes, standing on a platform, surrounded by others, it flashed into my mind. What a giant! What strength! What manliness! What a personality! Everyone near him looks so insignificant in comparison. It came to me almost as a shock and seemed to startle me. What was it that gave Swamiji this distinction? Was it his height? No, there were gentlemen there taller than he was. Was it his build? No, there were near him some very fine specimens of American manhood. It seemed to be more in the expression of the face than anything else. Was it his purity? What was it? I could not analyze it. I remembered what had been said of Lord Buddha, a lion amongst men. I felt that Swamiji had unlimited power, that he could move heaven and earth if he willed it. This was my strongest and lasting impression of him. But I am grateful that I have seen him, and that during those 2 weeks he had sometimes been very kind to me. And even now, as I read and reread the Swami's lectures, that picture of wonderful strength and purity comes before my mental vision, and in those printed lines there still seems to vibrate something of that great spirit that came to enlighten the Western world." Unquote. Swamiji's celebrated researcher Mary Louise Burke wrote, quote, "As I see it, his gigantic mission in America, and also, of course, in England, was to alter at its deepest source the whole thought current of the Western people. His reiterated definition of man, not as body or mind, but pure infinite spirit, rang through his lectures like a gong, sometimes as a steady background note, sometimes, more often, as dominant thunder. One cannot but feel that this was the crux of his message." Unquote. The beauty and power in his writings cast their spell on readers also. Romarola quoted Vivekananda's words to his countrymen at Madras, quote, "For the next 50 years, let all other vain gods disappear from our minds. This is the only God that is awake, our own race. Everywhere his hands, everywhere his feet, everywhere his ears. He covers everything. All other gods are sleeping. What vain gods shall we go after, and yet cannot worship the God that we see all round us? the Virat. The first of all worship is the worship of the Virat, of those all around us. These are all our gods, men and animals, and the first gods we have to worship are our own countrymen." Unquote. Then Romarola went on to write, quote, "Imagine the thunderous reverberations of these words. The storm passed. It scattered its cataracts of water and fire over the plain, and its formidable appeal to the force of the soul, to the God sleeping in man, and his illimitable possibilities. I can see the mage erect, his arm raised, like Jesus above the tomb of Lazarus in Rembrandt's engraving, with energy flowing from his gesture of command to raise the dead and bring him back to life. Did the dead arise? Did India, thrilling to the sound of his words, reply to the hope of her herald? Was her noisy enthusiasm translated into deeds? It is impossible to change in a moment the habits of a people buried in a dream, enslaved by prejudice, and allowing themselves to fail under the weight of the slightest effort. But the master's rough scourge made her turn for the first time in her sleep. And for the first time, the heroic trumpet sounded in the midst of her dream, the forward march of India, conscious of her God. She never forgot it. From that day, the awakening of the torpid colossus began. If the generation that followed saw 3 years after Vivekananda's death the revolt of Bengal, the prelude to the great movement of Tilak and Gandhi, if India today has definitely taken part in the collective action of organized masses, it is due to the initial shock, to the mighty Lazarus come forth of the message from Madras. This message of energy had a double meaning, a national and a universal. Although for the great monk of the Advaita, it was the universal meaning that predominated, it was the other that revived the sinews of India. His words are great music, phrases in the style of Beethoven, stirring rhythms like the march of Handel choruses. I cannot touch these sayings of his, scattered as they are through the pages of books at 30 years' distance, without receiving a thrill through my body like an electric shock. And what a shock! What transports must have been produced when in burning words they issued from the lips of the hero." Unquote. In a speech on Swami Vivekananda, Jawaharlal Nehru named Swami Vivekananda as the single ideal person whose example should be followed by children and young people. Quote, "Rooted in the past and full of pride in India's heritage, Vivekananda was yet modern in his approach to life's problems and was a kind of bridge between the past of India and her present. He was a fine figure of a man, imposing, full of poise and dignity, sure of himself and his mission, and at the same time full of a dynamic and fiery energy and a passion to push India forward. Vivekananda came as a tonic to the depressed and demoralized Hindu mind and gave it self-reliance and some roots in the past. He started new movements of thought. He talked of our weaknesses and our failings too. He points out the great things for which India stood and which, even in the days of India's downfall, made her, in some measure, continue to be great. So what Swamiji has written and said is of interest and must interest us and is likely to influence us for a long time to come. He was no politician in the ordinary sense of the word and was one of the great founders of the national modern movement of India, and a great number of people who took part in that movement in a later date drew their inspiration from Swami Vivekananda. Directly or indirectly, he has powerfully influenced the India of today. And I think that our younger generation will take advantage of this fountain of wisdom, of spirit and fire that flows through Swami Vivekananda, because there was fire in his heart, the fire of a great personality, coming out in eloquent and ennobling language. It was no empty talk." Unquote. Nehru was echoing the admiration of other great leaders of India. Swami Vivekananda had an athletic build, was healthy and strong, and knew no fear. He always maintained a heroic attitude. The fierce was not fierce to him. The terrible, not terrible. His pure character and massive intellect were duly matched by his burning enthusiasm for the welfare and well-being of the poor. His passionate urge to see God face to face gave him a luminous energy that brought him to Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar. There, his spiritual breakthrough made him a great monk. With his merciless finger of fire, Ramakrishna hammered his personality into his chief disciple, which the world saw later. At Dakshineshwar, Sri Ramakrishna charged Swamiji with the noble mission of awakening the people by preaching to them the life-giving message of Neo-Vedanta. The teachings of Vedanta tantalized and fascinated Swamiji, who found in them a mine of strength. The quintessence of Vedanta is in that one word, strength. We find in Swamiji the happy synthesis of Kshatravirya, vigor of body, that the heroes of the Mahabharata possessed, and Brahma Teja, glow of soul, the distinctive characteristic of the ancient sages. Swamiji was inclined to an itinerant life and travelled all over India. He saw with a prophetic eye the mantle of dominant ignorance and tamas which had settled over the race. He realized that the people of India were deluded and struggling under a miasmal fog of weakness which they thought was sattvic. They were ready to believe anything they were told with little or no supporting evidence. Credulity occupied the throne of reason as superstitious beliefs ran riot in their imagination. Their freedom was suppressed. They were in a stranglehold of fear. And worst of all, they were paralyzed, utterly resigned to their fate. Swamiji saw all this compassionately and wept profusely. His heart bled for the people of India. Swami Vivekananda's profound meditation at Kanyakumari gave him an inspired vision. With the blessings of Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, Vivekananda went to the United States to get help for the starving masses of India, impervious to all criticism and ignoring the rule that an orthodox monk cannot travel outside India. Enduring many difficulties, he arrived in snow-clad Chicago as a stranger, friendless and with little money to get aid for his hungry people. The rest is history. At the age of 30 in 1893, at Chicago's World's Parliament of Religions, he was recognized as an intellectual giant. The wisdom of India flowed from his lips when he rose to speak. His first profound message lasted only a few minutes, but its impact was staggering. Through a unique juxtaposition of just 5 words, a little 5-word formula that fell like a bombshell, he created spiritual history. You divinities on earth, sinners, One observer remarked, quote, "The first 4 words summoned into the gospel of joy, hope, virility, energy, and freedom among the races of man. And with the last word, he demolished the whole structure of self-generating cowardice, promoting negative, pessimistic thought." Unquote. That last word set in motion a new wheel of dharma, virility, energy, and inner and outer mastery over nature. The cry of Swamiji's soul, the song of his life, was India's regeneration. His propulsive energy was noted, quote, "As soon as the Swami found clear as noonday which way the path lay before him for a fructification of his ideas, he was seized with such a paroxysm of intense rajas, such a tremendous force surging within him and struggling for an outlet, that he felt as if he would burst. It was this mighty force that fell upon the world in its flood tides of spirituality, destined to sweep away all that was weak and debasing, and bear in its contents all that was ennobling and life-giving." Unquote. At the World's Parliament of Religions, Swamiji vindicated India's noble spiritual heritage and became the symbol of India's glorious future to the world. Abundant news coverage of his speeches and reports of his great success reached India and were read by Indian scholars and intellectuals. They were highly inspired by them. When Vivekananda returned to India and spoke in the cities, they honored him and listened to him with avid attention. In everyone's breast, pride and self-confidence swelled. Like a wild forest fire, enthusiasm swept through the nation. The mental shackles were broken. India was spiritually awakened. This is an important part of our history. Swamiji's triumphant march throughout India awakened a new spirit in her people. His forceful explanation of the strengthening thoughts and ideals of Hinduism breathed new life into India's dying religion. Far and wide, he delivered his message that the real spirit of religion exhorts us to galvanize our souls with a force that will change our entire outlook and vision of life. Infinite power is within us. Purity, unselfishness, and sincere love for a holy cause bring out that power. In the true spirit of Hinduism, he freely advocated the cultivation of power and its unreserved use against the enemy to root out evil and keep it from spreading further. He said repeatedly, quote, "In spite of the greatness of the Upanishads, in spite of our boasted ancestry of sages, compared to many other races, I must tell you that we are weak, very weak. First of all is our physical weakness. That physical weakness is the cause of at least 1/3 of our miseries. We are lazy, we cannot work, we cannot combine, we do not love each other. We are intensely selfish. Not 3 of us can come together without hating each other, without being jealous of each other. We speak of many things parrot-like, but never do them. Speaking and not doing has become a habit with us. What is the cause of that? Physical weakness. This sort of weak brain is not able to do anything. We must strengthen it. First of all, our young men must be strong. Religion will come afterwards. Be strong, my young friends. That is my advice to you. You will be nearer to heaven through football than through the study of the Gita." These are bold words, but I have to say them, for I love you. I know where the shoe pinches. I have gained a little experience. You will understand the Gita better with your biceps, your muscles a little stronger. You will understand the mighty genius and the mighty strength of Krishna better with a little of strong blood in you. You will understand the Upanishads better and the glory of the Atman when your body stands firm upon your feet and you feel yourselves as men. Thus we have to apply these to our needs." Unquote. The core of his exhilarating philosophy is in that one word, strength. The recurring theme of his message was, "Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached." Fearlessness. Fearlessness. His book that contains the fiery speeches, lectures from Colombo to Almora, is a modern Gita to readers. Bringing solidarity to a hopelessly divided Hindu fold was a stupendous task and daring adventure. For nearly half a millennium, the great emphasis on the futility of a secular life had left the people without the strengthening idea that Swamiji embodied, a strong and respected spiritual personality with a dynamic outlook. With the sheer force of his character, he first blasted away the boulders of ignorance. Every powerful word exploded from the magazine of his spiritual experience. His fiery blasts fell alike on hypocrites and traders in religion. Listening to his inspiring lectures, which had the active power of a tornado, the sluggish, befuddled, and deluded people awoke from their centuries-old tamasic sleep. Swami Vivekananda's experience of immortality made him the personification of dynamism, fearlessness, and strength. He is inseparable from his teachings. His words, charged with a fire whose heat his listeners said they felt, were the actual vibrations of his immortal soul. His words still have that fire and will have it ages to come. And what words they are! There is no end to their reserve of power. Romarola used to feel a thrill like an electric current when he read Swamiji's books. Mahatma Gandhi was similarly thrilled to find that Swamiji's writings enhanced his patriotism. Quote, "The love that I had for my country has become 1,000-fold after reading his works thoroughly." Unquote.